Claw leadership. Imagine it different. Contents. Prologue. Context. World of Work Survey Report Headline Findings. Changing the landscape. Interventions for change. 1. Prologue. Autumn 2024 sees the first actions of the Labour Party, taking the reins of government for the first time in 14 years. With a challenging economic backdrop, both the election manifesto and first statements in office emphasise fiscal constraints and the scant likelihood of additional resources for government departments. New Secretary of State Lisa Nandy moved quickly to announce a change of tone. No more culture wars, and to affirm the culture, media and sports sectors are crucial to the mission for national growth. Such affirmation is well received by a sector seeking a proactive and positive approach to meet the residual demands of sustained development. The fresh optimism and renewed aspiration of governmental change does not diminish the anticipated challenges ahead, yet it has released a new sense of possibility which is tangibly different from the gloomier sentiment in the spring of 2024 when much of this work was carried out. The underlying issues and challenges remain, and the solutions will continue to demand strong and sustained investment to achieve the critical shifts for a healthy, resilient and vibrant cultural sector that can play its full part in sharing the narratives of our nation, underpinning our standing in the international arena, creating opportunities for engagement and participation no matter where we live, and demonstrating its tangible contribution to the agenda for growth. What does feel different is the possibility for change and the potential for renewal, which can only realise its full potential if the sector workforce is well supported to create and adapt for change. The time feels ripe for fresh thinking and bold engagement, and we hope that the interventions outlined spark the actions and investments to make a positive, lasting difference for culture and society. 2. Context. Just 4 years ago, the entire cultural sector shut its doors to the COVID pandemic. Since then, many trends have accelerated to deliver years' worth of gradual change in a matter of months, or, in the case of home working, a matter of moments. The post-pandemic landscape presents a working environment that continues to shape and reshape in response to wider drivers and shifts in society and cultural practice. In seeking to understand, rationalise and respond to the changing landscape, Claw Leadership devised the World of Work series. 3 phased interventions to explore with sector partners and leaders the dynamics and options of the recent environment and the possibilities for change and development. The series includes World of Work Survey, in partnership with the Arts and Humanities Research Council, combining qualitative and quantitative data to understand how the world of work has changed and what the impact of these changes is for leaders in the cultural sector. Leadership Now, in partnership with Arts Council England. 5 assemblies that brought together the sector workforce for discussion, exchange and shared solution finding. Imagine It Different, in partnership with the Paul Hamlyn Foundation. drawing on the breadth and depth of insights surfaced through the survey and assemblies to pinpoint key points for reflection, action and change. The World of Work survey delves into the evolving nature of work and leadership. In the cultural sector domain, post-pandemic, it draws on survey findings, a literature review and reflections from the Leadership Now assemblies to explore: how is the world of work changing? What are the needs of the cultural sector? What does this demand of cultural leaders? The headline findings from the survey are shared later. The Leadership Now assemblies were held between January to March 2024. In London, Leeds and Birmingham, and 2 online. A summary of the assemblies is provided at Appendix 1. The sector responded keenly to the assemblies. The high demand for places reflecting the strong desire for engagement and change, and we welcomed 70+ people per gathering. We also held 2 focus groups to drill deeper into the issues and challenges faced by deaf, disabled, neurodivergent leaders and global majority leaders, to better understand the circumstances from leaders with diverse characteristics. The headline findings from the assemblies are shared later. Engagement with the World of Work series has been full and positive. General sector feedback is that the series is both timely and strategic. A number of assembly attendees pointed out how cathartic it was to share perspectives and challenges. And there is also keen interest in the consultation and outcomes from beyond the UK. Our third phase of activity, Imagine It Different, now seeks to draw on the breadth and depth of insights gained to pinpoint key points for reflection, action and change. Priorities that can disrupt embedded trends, respond to, and improve the experience of sector leadership now and in the future. Yet the sector faces a significant dilemma. There is a call for radical and systemic change. But circumstances in early 2024, prior to the announcement of the UK general election, saw a sector weary with the weight of existing challenges and struggling to articulate the pathways to alternative futures. The opportunity of the incoming Labour government provides a clear prospect for a gear change, and early messages from government are both empathetic and encouraging. Whilst the financial and core operational constraints are not released, there is perhaps a moment for mental and aspirational release. The impetus to think outside existing boxes and dream anew. 3. World of Work Survey Report Headline Findings. In the 20 years since CLAW Leadership appointed its first fellow, the cultural sector and the landscape it operates in has changed dramatically. The UK's economy entered and has remained in a long period of stagnation, with a decade of austerity impacting all public services and reducing the funding available for the cultural sector. New technologies have changed how we work, communicate, and engage with culture and cultural leaders. Attitudes towards work and norms in the workplace have changed, with more of a focus on well-being and work-life balance. as well as increasing workforce diversity. Many pre-existing trends were accelerated by the COVID-19 pandemic, delivering years' worth of gradual change over a very short time span, as businesses had to find new models. Half of the adult workforce began working from home overnight, and organisations had to develop new workplace norms and ways of working. For the cultural sector, much of which is participatory/audience-based, COVID-19 and the health restrictions were a seismic shock, posing an existential risk to many organisations and imposing a pace of change that would have seemed unimaginable in December 2019. The cultural sector and its leaders emerged from the turbulence of this period into a funding landscape described as highly challenging and a fractious and often hostile political climate. On top of the persistent climate and environmental sustainability challenges, with impacts on global systems, weather patterns, supply chains and migration, global shocks pushed inflation up to the highest level in decades. Whilst local shocks, such as harsh cuts in local government funding, amplified the absence of control with complex multi-dimensional impacts, at the same time, long-term trends like technological developments, generational demographic shifts in the workforce, changing workplace norms, and additional worker expectations continue to affect work and leadership in the sector. With these changes, it is no surprise that leaders surveyed report that the demands placed on them have grown worse in the last 5 years. While many remain positive about their work and feel confident in their ability to meet the demands and requirements of their roles, growing pressures are leaving leaders increasingly stretched. The survey results tell a hard-to-read story of leaders feeling under siege and overwhelmed. Local governments have historically been one of the largest investors in the cultural sector, but with huge pressures on local government, local authority per capita spending on the arts and culture fell by around 36% between 2009 and 2019. Cultural organisations have struggled due to austerity measures, which have reduced local and national government funding for arts and culture. The vast majority are united in experiencing a negative impact from the political climate, funding availability and funder requirements. The growth in social media has been particularly challenging for the sector and has tested cultural organisations' long-standing role to comment and artistically contextualise social traditions, religion, science, politics and history. This heightened politicisation through social media engagement presents complex challenges for cultural leaders around how to protect and manage the core functions of the organisations whilst still living by values of activism and social justice in an informed way. Looking to the future, leaders expect that the funding landscape and political polarisation will continue to negatively impact the sector, although they feel more confident in their ability to manage these trends than others. We see high share of leaders selecting a neutral impact for changes in technology and consumer preferences, and there is a question of whether leaders have had the space to engage with these trends which we know will exert an impact, and what they will mean in their work. Leaders' responses suggest a continued reliance on traditional, hierarchical leadership styles in the sector, with leaders drawing most often on the skills that suggest individual responses and leader-led solutions rather than a systems leadership approach, which is increasingly recognised as more effective in other sectors. There are a clear and recognisable set of skills that leaders draw on: strategic thinking, resilience, adaptability, emotional intelligence, and far fewer mentions of things like conflict management, negotiation, influencing and interpersonal skills, all of which are also critical in systems approach. The sense that leaders are internalising problems rather than looking to their teams to develop solutions comes through when where leaders are getting support from is considered. Leaders are turning most often to peers in the sector for support, looking less frequently to internal sources of support or to other sectors. This contrasts with conversations with other sectors where leaders say that they are responding to change and the challenging external environment by moving to systems leadership approaches, creating connections and collaborations throughout and outside their organisations, and working collectively to solve problems and adapt. 4. Leadership Now Insights Report Headline Findings. People and workforce recruitment and retention. The sector is grappling with the increasing complexity of workforce dynamics and leadership expectations. Generational differences are highlighting disparities in working styles and expectations among different age groups. There are ever-decreasing opportunities for underrepresented groups, including young people, freelancers, and individuals from marginalised communities. There is significant turnover within the sector, resulting in a loss of organisational memory. Shifting priorities, behaviours, and expectations in the world of work mean some are choosing to leave positions and/or to work differently. There is increased precarity in the sector, loss of jobs, and decreasing capacity to grow due to funding or lack of increased income against rising costs. Leaders are facing new challenges in meeting the diverse needs of their staff, balancing ambition with reassurance and navigating workload concerns. Amidst constant flux, high turnover rates and care needs, leaving many feeling their jobs are impossible to sustain. There is now a growing demand for leadership that provides clarity and grounding in times of uncertainty. Innovations in distributed leadership models, such as co-leadership and citizen assemblies, are emerging as ways to share power and foster inclusion within organisations. Boards. There were many pressing concerns regarding the role and effectiveness of boards, their ability to deliver, the need for board professionalism, greater diversification, and the reality of recruiting a sufficiently experienced, knowledgeable, and robust board that are reflective of wider society. Paying trustees offers one way to broaden membership and increase diversity. Board development and succession planning need improvement, with calls for enhanced communication, relationship building, and support for less experienced chairs. Risk aversion among boards and funders poses challenges. In a climate of growing accountability, there is a need for increased professionalism among trustees, particularly in smaller organisations or those run by volunteers. Business models and sustainability. Discussions emphasised the urgent need to improve management training within the arts sector to equip leaders with essential conflict resolution and change management skills. Mentorship and coaching were identified as powerful drivers of positive change, offering transformative experiences and fostering leadership, validation and confidence. Practical strategies to address competing demands and overload were proposed, including mindfulness training, role and responsibility reviews, and enhancing decision-making processes and accountability. The findings emphasise the importance of drawing on diverse experiences and external business acumen. Insights from the commercial sector highlighted the importance of merging altruistic goals with financial viability, emphasising the need for flexibility in governance and structure. Community involvement in decision-making processes emerged as a key enabler of idea sharing and development, enriching perspectives and skill sets. Equity, justice and inclusion. The environment for speaking out within the sector is characterised by political cautiousness, feelings of censorship and risk aversion, with organisations carefully considering the potential reputational risks associated with public statements. Smaller, diverse-led organisations had these increased risks and felt that larger institutions may opt for silence in what are often positioned as polarising public debates. There's a perceived retreat of power following movements like Black Lives Matter, BLM, and Me Too, geopolitical conflicts, with larger institutions seemingly becoming increasingly risk-averse. The war on culture in the UK is driving negativity around social justice and inclusion. A bigger challenge and concern are the lack of consensus and increasing divergence, as well as polarisation of different viewpoints within organisations themselves, which create a culture of distrust affecting teams. Sector workforce diversity is still of concern in ensuring progress made in increasing the diversity of global majority, disabled and other protected characteristics, including socio-economic factors be sustained and grows, in particular leadership roles in larger organisations and areas such as museums. Peer group support and networks that could provide spaces to share challenges were felt to be instrumental in sustaining staff. Strategic partnership and collaboration. The arts sector recognises the critical importance of strategic partnerships and collaboration in navigating the seismic changes brought about by evolving socio-political landscapes. Partnerships with local authorities are facing significant challenges due to financial uncertainties and organisational restructuring. While there's a collective acknowledgement of the need for radical thinking, to foster partnerships, challenges persist due to resource constraints and constantly shifting priorities. Resource scarcity complicates efforts to collaborate effectively, as finding the energy and vision needed to make partnerships successful becomes increasingly difficult. well-being care and compassion. The sector is grappling with significant challenges related to well-being care and compassion, exacerbated by under-resourcing and external pressures. There was a call for new models to address these challenges and foster a culture of well-being and compassion within organisations. The current work model was seen as leading to increased stress and burnout among workers. There is a consensus that efficiency measures often result in knee-jerk reactions, emphasising the need for systemic reform rather than individual fixes. Comprehensive care is highlighted as essential yet challenging to implement due to stretched resources. Balanced care with workload poses significant hurdles, with leaders facing difficult decisions amidst limited funding and resources. Advocating for the impact of the arts. The theme of advocacy for the sector emerges as a critical priority for driving meaningful change and recognition. Discussion revolved around the necessity for a unified voice that advocates for value and impact. Central to advocacy is the need for evidence-based approaches supported by reliable data and impact assessments. A collaborative language that transcends localized efforts and promotes successes and challenges is sought. There is a call for a more unified approach that extends beyond the arts and culture sector, reshaping evaluation tools to better articulate impact, share value with other sectors, and achieve better storytelling within the wider public. AI/digital. The discussions highlighted a pressing need for the arts sector to enhance its digital literacy and establish a code of practice for the ethical use of AI. Recognizing the potential leadership role of younger generations in AI adoption, there's a call for the sector to lead tech innovation programs that leverage its strengths in ethics and creativity. There are, however, also concerns regarding the sector's capacity to keep pace with rapid AI and digital developments. Environmental sustainability practice. The overarching political landscape presents significant challenges to environmental sustainability efforts. On top of the existential threats to current norms and practices, conflicting priorities between economic and environmental impacts have stalled progress. Short-term funding cycles exacerbate the issue by impeding long-term strategic planning and tying sustainability initiatives to immediate financial requirements. Attendees expressed concerns about the impact of funding cuts on organisational activities and staffing levels, highlighting the need for sustainable funding models. 5. Changing the landscape. The headline findings from the reports identify many challenges facing the arts and culture sector. These challenges are multifaceted, requiring innovative and intentional approaches to address them effectively. A reimagining of structures, processes and paradigms. A sector-generated renewal to better align with the evolving needs and realities of today's world, and to future-proof cultural leadership through building skills and knowledge for the challenges ahead. But the sector can only realise its full potential if its leaders are well supported to adapt to change. And we need diverse leaders prospering in order to ensure opportunity for all and to surface the very best ideas. Diverse leadership is the mechanism to unlock opportunity for the next generation, by being champions and forging pathways and progression. The focus on leadership support and development is crucial for the culture sector because culture plays a key role in growth, innovation, and the development of proactive ecosystems. It matters for telling our nation's story for economic growth, international trade, to ensure that in this new era of change and possibilities, everyone in this country has the opportunity to indulge in cultural activities and sees themselves included. Essential to changing the environment will be a tangible change that enshrines values-based leadership with everyday practice, to coach and facilitate shifts in the collective mindset. Refreshing the story the sector tells itself about leadership and what it means to lead in this changing world. Embracing experimentation, innovation, and calculated risks can foster resilience and adaptability, enabling organisations to thrive in this dynamic environment. However, the tipping point seems near, and taking risks is imperative. Before organisations become too vulnerable to do so. Leaders must be enabled to step outside their comfort zones, challenge the status quo, and embrace uncertainty as opportunity for regeneration, growth, and transformation. It was notable during the Leadership Now assemblies that participants generally found it hard to be solutions-focused. Individual leaders were and are shouldering more responsibilities, highlighting the urgent need for better connections and networks. Those within the sector are experiencing high levels of burnout and overwhelm, in some cases exacerbated by increased demand from funders by the widespread reduction in resources, and also due to a sense of self-reliance, which isolates leaders from access to broader sources of support. It is the combination of challenges that deepens the difficulty. It might be that a leader can deal with decreasing availability of funds, or increased reporting requirements from funders, or the challenges of social media or culture wars, or changing trends in tech, or changing expectations from the workforce. But to manage all of these challenges pushes leaders to feel increasingly stretched, under siege, and overwhelmed. The pressure is particularly acute for global majority, deaf, disabled, and neurodivergent leaders, who face the added burden of being the expert by lived experience, and the added obstacles of representation, access to information, and overcoming systemic barriers. What is clear is that it will be essential to address people-related challenges in multiple ways, including increasing access to training, particularly in HR management, to improve leaders' skills profile. Providing time-poor leaders with practical, easily digestible how-to case studies, Sharing and creating the spaces for sharing learning will better empower leaders to navigate complex challenges and drive meaningful organisational change. For areas related to partnerships, governance, diversity, equity, justice and advocacy, and investment in accessible resources, best practice case studies and frameworks are vital. Provision to address racist, Islamophobic and anti-immigrant perspectives remains important. Critical too is the need to strengthen peer networks, to facilitate knowledge sharing, capacity building, and collective problem solving. This will be a major part of enabling leaders to make informed decisions and implement effective strategies that address the specifics of their creative, local and social circumstances. 6. Interventions for change. The priorities below scope a range of interventions for systemic change. Some creating immediate impact and others where initial actions begin to shift the dial but achieve full transformation only over time. A 3 Horizons framework captures the impact of this evolution and change. A diagram of the 3 Horizon solution is displayed now. Horizon 1 – Impact, Respond and Release. These interventions seek to address critical needs and respond to the pressure points raised in the research and insights reports. They achieve immediate outcomes, release pressures, and encourage the embedding of strategic change. There is a need for open acknowledgement of the current constraints by the new government, by funders, and by key infrastructure organisations. Increasing the investment in capacity building and reducing the now onerous obligations that have built up over time. Re-establishing the arm's length principle for non-government department bodies, more flexible and open commissions for funding, and opportunities for knowledge sharing complement the requirement for enhanced management training to support workforce solidarity and cohesion. Horizon 2 Impact, New Systems and Practice. These interventions flow from the refreshed conditions for change that create and support new practice and new systems of leadership in the midterm. Investment in new thinking and experimentation, and sharing those experiments as examples of learning, facilitate future-proofing and engender new business and organisational models to grow and thrive. Horizon 3 Impact, Transformations. These game-changing interventions have a slower burn, achieving effective transformational and systemic shifts over the longer term. Priorities for well-being, an online resource hub, for example, foundational interventions create secure building blocks on which true transformations can flourish. Transformation in organisational models, creative output, modes of delivery and value propositions of the sector to changed audiences, consumers and participants. In the table on the document, it is notable that the mapping is heavily weighted towards Horizons 1 and 2. Immediate actions suggesting that current responses are focused on helping leaders navigate the world as it is now, rather than creating the changes for the world we want to see. More thinking and perhaps more time is necessary. A two-pronged approach that tackles the critical challenges restricting progress, alongside a qualitative breathing space where collaboration, creativity and clarity can support an appetite and capacity for risk-taking, and further underline the innovations necessary for systemic change. As convener of this World of Work series, CLAW Leadership is ready to champion this work. But if whole sector transformation is to happen, collaboration and partnerships are essential. And we actively seek strategic and creative partnerships to create the difference the sector needs to see. The World of Work series affirms the essential need to change and the collective will to connect, collaborate and create futures. Together, let us accept the challenge to imagine and make it different for current and future generations. You can view the interventions for change in the accompanying video.